I have a question for you, Clementine. It's a very simple question, but I think it'll be an interesting question to ask you. What is a woman?
Piers, I'm not going down the path of debating trans women with you.
I didn't
Trans women are
mention
women.
trans women. I asked you what a woman is.
Okay, I'll tell you. I know that because this is your tactic. This is what you do. What is a woman? I'll tell you what a woman is.
It shouldn't be controversial.
I'll tell you what a woman is. A woman is someone who has at least at one point in her life felt scared of a man.
Sorry? So why in 2020 did you tweet the coronavirus isn't killing men fast enough?
I tweeted that in 2020 as a misguided tweet, but it was actually much of a part of a longer
misguided tweet.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So as you can see from that intro, we got another Piers Morgan debate coming in, and I love these, y'all. I just absolutely love these. I adore doing these. These are so much fun to do, and I hope you guys enjoy these videos. And as you can see, we got Andrew Wilson coming in and destroying feminists, as Andrew Wilson generally does. Now, you guys might be surprised where I fall out on these. It's actually, honestly, somewhere in the middle. Somewhere kind of in between the two positions, to be honest with you. I lean a little bit more conservative than I do liberal, but, you know, it is what it is, and, yeah, that's where most people fall, to be honest with you. Now, I love that. These feminists just get destroyed by facts and logic, and by basic biology, for goodness sakes, basic reality, basic common sense that should be apparent to everybody, but some people love to live in delusional dream worlds. But we're going to get into all that. Before we do, though, I need you guys to do me a giant favor and smash that like button. It really does help the channel out. It helps the video to expand and grow. Subscribe if you're new around here, and make sure and stay tuned and up to date with my regular videos that I put out. We go over politics, we read the news, and we figure out how we're being manipulated by said news, because you are definitely being manipulated. They put these things, they insert micro manipulations, as I call them, to kind of push these paragraphs and sentences and whatever the facts may be. They try to push it in a certain direction to make you believe, you know, their worldview, if you will. And we love to point that out, because that's narrative building, folks. That is not fact bringing, and that's what our news is supposed to be. It's just, hey, giving you the facts, giving you, hey, what happened in reality. That's what they're supposed to do, but that is not what they do. They sow a narrative. They weave their way through that narrative to manipulate you into thinking just like they do. Right. So we read left-wing news. I lean right. We do that on purpose, right? Anytime I go over right-wing news, I always let everybody know, hey, this is right-wing news, blah, 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 blah. I try to stay as transparent as possible. I try to stay as open as possible. I'm going to give you guys my opinion. However, I am going to give you all the facts, which the corporate press absolutely does not do. So, y'all subscribe, sign up, become a member, be an active participant, for crying out loud. If you want to keep this country, right, if you want to hold the corporate press and journalism to account, sign up, become a member, be an active participant in the news. Make your voice heard. That would really, really help me out. Sign up, become a member. There's perks. There's all kind of other little goobly gobbly stuff. So y'all make sure and do that, and share this video anywhere and everywhere you can. That would be great. That is probably the single best way to help the channel out. It's one click. That's all you got to do right below the video. Share this with anybody and everybody you know. But without any further ado, feminists get destroyed.
It's a very simple question, but I think it'll be an interesting question to ask you. What is a woman?
Piers, I'm not going down the path of debating trans women with you.
I didn't mention trans women. I asked you what a woman is.
Okay, I'll tell you. I know that because this is your tactic. This is what you do. What is a woman? I'll tell you what a woman is.
It shouldn't be controversial.
I'll tell you what a woman is. A woman is someone who has at least at one point in her life felt scared of a man.
Sorry?
So
but you guys never want to talk about that.
Hang on.
You guys never want to talk about that.
So any man who's ever felt afraid of another man is a woman?
No.
What are
you
talking
That's
about?
not what I'm saying.
You know, this is exactly why you're wearing that shirt that says repeal. You should put the 19th under it. It's unbelievable. What are you talking about? A woman, anybody who has ever at one point been afraid of a man, it's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Do you have an actual argument here?
Would you let me finish speaking? Or do you
how long is it going to take for you to finish? How long is it going to take for you to finish?
Yes, do you really just invite people on your show to be interrupted like this?
Well, Clementine, look, all due respect, we did do a bit of research into what you said about me in the past, so I think I'm entitled to give you...
So you already know what I think about that question, because I've written about you asking that question.
Yes, you have. In fact, you said, like, all of the big...
So why would you ask it again when you know what my answer to that is?
To enlighten the audience who have no idea what you're talking about, or me, like all of the bigots, that's me apparently, currently jumping on the transphobic shuttle to Ding Dong Station. Morgan wants you to believe this is about fairness and equality, specifically fairness and equality in women's sports. That was exactly what it was about. And the problem is, Clementine, with all due respect to you, the reality is...
I doubt it. I doubt it's coming with due respect.
I'll treat you with perfect respect, but your inability to just simply state what a woman actually is, particularly given 2 weeks ago in the UK, the Supreme Court made it very clear that a woman is a biological female. That's it. It's a scientific fact. The fact that you can't answer that is part of the problem.
I'd like to know, the thing is that I would like to know why you, in particular, are so obsessed with this definition of what a woman is. Firstly, how does it impact you in any way? Secondly,
I have a 13-year-old daughter.
As a woman,
I have a 13-year-old daughter. And if my 13-year-old daughter decides she wants to compare... You ask me a question. You ask me a question, I'm going to answer you. Well, if you don't want an answer, don't ask me a question. Here's my answer to your question. I have a 13-year-old...
You asked me. You won't let me
answer. I have a 13-year-old daughter. I have 7 nieces, right? And some of them are very...
You're a real expert then
so
on women,
if I may
guess.
answer your question, some of them are very good at sport, right? The idea that they would one day have their dream of potentially an Olympic place or a Team GB place, whatever it may be, a world championship place, taken from them by a biological male, I think is completely outrageous. And by the way, so does most of the world now, which is why there's been a reversing, screeching U-turn on this particular subject. But I come back to my question to you. Your inability to say what a woman is, and yet here you are lecturing women on how they should behave as women. It's completely perverse.
I think that reducing women specifically to your biological deciding of what you think a woman is.
It's called science. It's their chromosomes. You have different chromosomes to me. It's not me saying that. I'm not writing.
I'm sure you're not the first.
science.
I'm sure I'm not the first person to tell you about intersex people. So how do you...
I'm not talking about intersex people.
No. This is all wrong anyway. The intersex is not a third sex. It's not a third sex. That's ridiculous. There is no third sex. There's 2 sexes, male, female, categorized scientifically. Intersex is not a third sex. Anybody can look that up in 5 seconds. Total lie. How did you not know that, by the way? How did you not know intersex is not a third sex?
This is a problem with the current feminist movement right there. They're just lapping over into some delusional dream world where they think that men can be women just because they say so, and they are destroying the previous feminism movements. This is a problem with current civil rights movements, if you will. Like, all the civil rights movements have pretty much been resolved over the, since 1965, for goodness sakes. So these people, they want to portray themselves as heroes of justice. So what do, folks? They make things up. They just grab something out of the ether, bring it down to like, we want trans rights, for goodness sakes, as if trans people do not have already the exact same rights that everybody else has, for goodness sakes. Like, I always beg the question on every single time I talk about this issue. I always ask the comments, and I never get an answer to this, so somebody please give me an answer. What are these trans rights that these people do not have that we have, that they deserve? And if it's not something, a right that they don't have, because that's more likely the case, as a matter of fact, that is the case, they do have those rights, why do they deserve more rights than anybody and everybody else, for goodness sakes? Why does a certain group get privileged above everybody else as far as rights? I'm sorry, I thought we was all supposed to be equal on this earth. I thought we was all supposed to start from the same playing field and then work out from there, right? Everybody doesn't end up the same. equity is would be a disaster, as a matter of fact, because you would have to rob from somebody else to give to the other people. But, you know, that's not even the discussion here. We're talking about what a woman is. What is so hard to say a biological female, an adult human female? What's so hard about saying that? Because it goes against the cult. That is what that does, because the cult says that if you wake up one morning and you feel a certain way, by God, biologically, that's what you are. Or you know, go do a surgery or whatever, which there have never been any successful surgeries to change biological sex. That is just not something that can happen currently. Like, hey, maybe sometime in the future, there might be a way to do it, you know, while the baby's still in the womb. You might be able to do that. I don't see any future where they can actually turn a man into a woman or vice versa. Don't see that future whatsoever. So what do these people have to do? They always get destroyed on these arguments because they have to deny reality. They have to deny the science that backs all of this up. Right? And then she wants to start talking about intersex people. That's an anomaly, right? Like he said, that's not a third sex. That's anomalous. Hey, it happens. You're gonna have evolutional whoopsies, if you will, to be blunt about that. Like, this is gonna happen, right? You know, biology isn't perfect. Nothing is perfect. Well, there's a couple things that are perfect, but you know, that's neither here nor there. That's getting outside of the debate. But I just love this because it puts them in a position to where they have to argue for delusions. And you can never win when you're trying to argue on behalf of a cultist, delusional dream world. Just doesn't work. Let's keep going.
Emily, good to see you again. Now, you started a kind of MAGA civil war when you railed against women who want to be a trad wife. You posted a TikTok video, which caused a lot of mayhem. Let's take a look at this.
I'm sorry, I hate to call out my own party, but the young girls on the right promoting this like trad wife bullshit. I just want to make sourdough for my husband. That's great. I'm all for it. I promote traditional values. I understand. I have been working since I was very young. I don't really plan on stopping working. I suggest you find a hobby that makes you money. But you guys, guess what? Guess what, baby girl? That lifestyle working out, a man, a provider, you just get to sit at home, bake bread every day. Slim to none. I would say none that's going to work out for you, or quite literally anyone you know. You're actually setting yourself up for failure because it could not be easier, if that's what you're going to pursue, to be trapped by a man. Okay? Also, let's bring some other things to the table besides sourdough. Guys want to be mentally stimulated as well as physical, okay? But I'm just like, please, you guys are too young to be promoting this. And also, by the way, it's cringe. You guys are cringe, okay?
Now, Emily, are you standing proudly by that TikTok?
Thank you guys for laughing. That is supposed to be the point of a lot of my videos. I don't take things too seriously. I usually say things like this and don't think anything of it. I do want to point out in the video, I did start it by being like, look, I love stay-at-home moms. I support them. I promote conservative values. I think the issue with the video is a lot of people just took the video and then gave their own meaning. The group I was specifically bashing on was the young girls in their 20s that promote like traditional lifestyles online that we all know in the right-wing community absolutely do not live these lifestyles. And it's just a bit over the top. It's kind of more cosplay than anything. So of course I support moms that do that. I just don't support the girls pretending to do it, I guess, if that kind of makes sense.
I'm not sure it does. Andrew, does it make sense to you?
Well, I mean, she's right in a sense that there's a lot of LARPing that goes on the right with the supposed traditional movement, which she's absolutely right, isn't living the traditional lifestyle. However, it's still a counterintuitive message to put out there that, oh, you're going to be trapped by your husband and his income. It's like, good. Don't you want to be in a relationship with your husband and have access to his income? Like, what's the problem here? That would be the values you're trying to move towards, right? So like, ultimately, it's a contradicting message. I understand why you got a bunch of garbage for it. It is a good idea, I think, to point out the LARP, a good idea to point out how much faux traditionalism is on the right because it's a way for them to peddle sex, and that's exactly what they're doing. You see them in skimpy outfits doing exactly that. Totally fair. But on the other hand, you absolutely should not be putting out a message which ridicules women for wanting to be stay-at-home moms and actually live some type of lifestyle which is conducive to their children and family.
I agree with a lot of that right there, right? Like, now, some of these videos, they do kind of dip off into the realm of nonsensical, if you will. It's clearly satirical in some sense, but promoting these traditional values, I think, is a very, very good thing, and I think we need to push people to do that if they hold those values, because, once again, the culture war, it's all about optics. It's all about what you see. When somebody's coming up and they see this girl stay-at-home mom, cooks sourdough, whatever that may be, right? As long as it's not too ridiculous, if you will, in a satirical fashion, in other words, right? I think that's fine. I think that's great, and I think we need a whole hell of a lot more of that. However, at the same time, right, we don't want to push that too far. We don't need to be promoting the sexism. We need to be getting rid of that sexism. We have glorified sex in this day and age, and I think that is a very bad thing for young men as well as young women. There's way too many young women that you know, that they're looking to tune out because of the second wave feminism movement. They're having trouble finding a man, maybe having trouble finding a job, so then they get online and they sell their bodies on the internet. That is absurd, and I don't think that should even exist. Even though I understand, look, selling your body, that's been a profession, if you want to even call it that, for a very, very long time. Very long time. But I think these traditional values need to be promoted a whole hell of a lot more than what they are, right? And that we don't give enough support for a lot of these people and a lot of these traditional values, because they are very good. That they're wholesome. It promotes families. And currently, right now, with the way society is, we need more of that. We need more Christianity out there, for goodness sakes, promoting, you know, these good moral values, right? The left can't stand that. I'm going to get admonished or lambasted against for saying that. But I think Christianity, which, by the way, founded this nation, you can argue against it, but there is no argument against it. That is just the facts of this nation. It was founded on Christianity. So I think we need to take those values seriously and promote those values as such. Because, you know, we all need to have some sort of moral framework, for goodness sakes. Now, getting to the whole feminist thing and, you know, should women work and all this other stuff, you know, I think it is, if we're going to promote this country as a free country, women should be allowed to pursue a career, for goodness sakes. But we should also warn these women that choose to pursue that career. Hang on just a second. If you ever, at any point in your life, want to have a family, have children, build that life, that traditional sort of family life, you need to think twice about some sort of long-term career, because women, unfortunately, have a biological time clock. This is very common sense. This is common knowledge. Women, when they get to a certain age, the risk for complications with birthing a child become greater and greater and greater. So they only have a short period of time. You know, if it was my suggestion, I would say have children as early as possible, raise those children, get that out of the way, then pursue a career once those children are adults or at least teenagers, right? I think that should be the standard, because then you get the best of both worlds, right? Nobody, I don't care who you are, nobody wants to be 85 years old, dying alone in a hospital bed with no one there. Right? That's just a horrific thought, if you ask me. Dying alone because you didn't, you know, you wanted to pursue a career and you didn't want a family at the time, and then, oh, oops, you know, now it's too late to have a family, and now you're stuck with no kids, and you're going to die alone. That's horrific, if you ask me. So I think these traditional values, they need to be promoted, right? Conservatives, they don't get out there enough and push these values. We don't shame the degeneracy of the left into oblivion nearly enough. And I think this needs to be promoted, because perception is reality, folks. If young people see this traditional lifestyle online promoted in these TikTok videos, and they see it's real, and hey, that's a viable option for life, maybe they will pursue that. And maybe we will get out of this replacement crisis that we're in, because we're currently, we're in a bad replacement crisis. Look at the generations, like the amount in the generations, right? The boomers, they're kind of an exception. There's 90 million boomers, or at least, the roundabout estimates, 90 million boomers. Slide down to Gen X. All right, Gen X, I think, is 70 million. Millennials are 60, I believe. Gen Z is 40 million. And Gen Alpha is going to be even less than that. I couldn't find the numbers for that, so that is what it is. But you see a major decline already, right? Just with millennials. Our population has already been halved right there, our replacement. That's not good for the country. That's not good for economics. That's not good for the United States of America to thrive and survive, prosper, and grow, for goodness sakes. And we need that growth. We need, like, for Social Security to work. If the liberals, which this doesn't ever make any sense to me, if the liberals, they want their entitlement programs, right, like Social Security and all that, Medicare and Medicaid, they want all this to work, but then at the same time, they promote abortions. Hey, have you thought about getting an abortion? That's insane to me. Like, you can't maintain these systems. They just can't be maintained without at least replacing yourselves, right? Because we all know Social Security takes 2 or 3 and sometimes 4 individuals to make one outgoing payment. I mean, it's 4 people paying in for one outgoing payment. What does that tell you, folks? It's pretty much a Ponzi scheme right there. It's never going to work in the end. That cannot be sustained. Something has to be done about that. Having more babies, that's what we need. More kids. And promoting these traditional values, that traditional lifestyle, that's the best way to get people to make more babies, for goodness sakes, because that traditional life is family life. Getting a husband, getting a wife, having kids, and a picket fence, and a house, which is, I ain't gonna lie, it's much harder these days. Like, I'm not gonna lie. That's why I caveated this at the beginning with, if they want to pursue a career, that's fine, because my wife has a job, for goodness sakes. We both work, but we both take care of the kid. He goes to school. We do our thing, and it is what it is. That's out of necessity. I understand some people, it just is. We can't afford the house that we live in without having 2 incomes, for goodness sakes. So it's necessity. But, that type of career, that's one thing. But what these women, they're not wanting families, and, they just want to put all their effort into that career. And, we'll do the family thing later. Well, women just don't have that choice, for goodness sakes. Or they have a very limited section of time. And I think that information needs to be conveyed to women at a young age to let them know this is what you're risking by choosing that path of career over family, right? Sometimes you can have both. Sometimes certain careers don't allow for that, really. So you got to think about what you want in the future. That's all I got to say about that. Let's keep going.
Okay, I want to play, because I think it fits in well here, the Caroline Levitt clip. This is where she's working with her baby. We'll just show the picture of her working at the White House with a baby in one hand and helping to run the country with the other. Now, when I first saw that picture, I thought, wow, that's a pretty extraordinary, powerful image of a young woman who's very young to be doing the incredibly important job she does. She does it, I think, extraordinarily well. And she's a mother, and she's feeding her son whilst doing this at the same time. Rachel, when you saw that image, it got a lot of blowback, good and bad. Some people loved it, some people hated it. What did you think about it?
Well, I actually tweeted about this too, because although I'm a big fan of Caroline, as a person, I think she's great, she's smart, she's lovely. I don't understand this compulsion, especially in the Trump administration, but on the right in general, where we're supposed to be conservatives, where we are pushing mothers to work. Trump has been a huge proponent of hiring women, getting women back to work as soon as possible after having the baby. And I think this is a huge mistake because, number one, what are we conserving? If we're not conserving the traditional family and traditional gender roles and motherhood in the middle of a birth rate crisis, what are we conserving as conservatives? Just like lower taxes? I mean, should be a core issue for us on the right to say, no, motherhood is not a part-time gig that you do on the side. You don't, ship your baby off to daycare where they're spending 3 times as much time with a low-wage daycare worker as they are with mom while you go and do your career. There's plenty of life to live after raising kids. I think after you've done that, if you want to venture out and do a few more things, once you have the empty nest, I think that's okay. But pushing mothers to work it's one of the key things that's tearing apart the fabric of society, because we're not raising our own children. We're not passing down our values to them. We're sending them to daycare and we're sending them to state-run schools, and that's who they're being raised by.
Look, I agree for the most part on that, but did we forget, folks? Did we forget? Oh, why is this being promoted in the Trump administration, hiring women? Did we forget that Donald Trump is a feminist? Yeah, people think he's some staunch conservative, right? I blame this on the corporate press and the mainstream news, right? I totally blame this because, Donald Trump was a lifelong Democrat. He comes out as a Republican, and all of a sudden, he's far-right Hitler. Right? He's orange Hitler, he blah, 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 he's far right, he's extreme, blah, this and that, and this and that, when Trump was actually, in every election Trump has been involved with, was the most moderate candidate in those elections. But he got framed as far right just because he came out as Republican. Like, people tend to forget this. Donald Trump was a Democrat, for goodness sakes. He's a moderate. He's not some staunch conservative, for goodness sakes. Now, maybe he is in a certain sense, but he's conserving 90s Democrat values, right? That's why he's pro-abortion, for goodness sakes. People tend to forget that because of the corporate press. They put out, oh, he's coming after your abortion. He's coming after women's rights. Well, that's just not true. We know this. And this is why I can't stand this narrative that Donald Trump is some far-right lunatic, some extreme deranged guy. He's a moderate. He's way more moderate than a lot of Democrats. And he's way more moderate than a lot of Republicans as well, because Democrats have gone so far left. Well, we talk about this all the time. They've gone so far left that they make old school Democrats and centrists and all that look like they're all far right. This is what happens when you sign on to cult activity over here. That's what we've got going on with Democrats these days, and people tend to forget that. They think he's some staunch conservative. Yeah, that's just not the case anymore. Never has been the case. I mean, once again, did we all forget? Donald Trump is a Democrat. He's a feminist, for goodness sakes. That's why he hires women. He thinks women should be in the workplace. He looks at the boss babe and is like, yes, sign her up, for goodness sakes. He's not some staunch conservative, y'all. Got another clip. Let's keep going.
Why in 2020 did you tweet the coronavirus isn't killing men fast enough?
I tweeted that in 2020 as a misguided tweet, but it was actually much of a part of a longer
misguided tweet
thread.
Coronavirus isn't killing men fast enough. You say you don't hate men.
I apologize for it, Piers.
You thought a deadly pandemic virus wasn't killing men fast enough.
Apologize to men again. Do it again. You haven't apologized to me for saying that you want me to die from the coronavirus.
Well, I would have to consider you a man to apologize you for that,
Say you're sorry. You don't even know what a woman is.
How
you
what
a man is?
You know what
now
else?
apologize.
I would like a man.
Andrew, I would like for her to apologize to me, because I do not appreciate her saying that my own husband does not respect me. Of course he respects me. He respects me as a mother and as a wife. He treats me like gold. Who the hell are you to tell me if he respects me or not?
You wouldn't have to get paid for this if you had a husband.
I didn't say that he... Where did I even
You did.
mention?
You said he clearly doesn't respect his wife.
You did say that. I heard you say it.
You mean the piece of shit that you're married to? Yeah, he clearly doesn't respect you.
Oh,
he sits there and makes jokes about how he married you. He doesn't do
He's not
shit
the
around
piece
the
of
house
shit
because
in
that's
this
why you married a
panel.
wife.
That would be you,
That's
man.
why you got a
You're
wife.
the one.
Yeah.
Listen, let's get back to the topic here. You're the one who is insisting that there's no data proving that it's shut up.
I would genuinely... Okay, let me... Hang on.
Time out.
Time out. I would genuinely like to know... You said it was misguided to say the coronavirus wasn't killing men fast enough. Why
it was
would
a
you?
terrible thing to say.
So why
it was a
did
terrible
you?
thing to say.
No, I
Piers.
understand.
I
it's a
already said that the time.
Don't worry.
Was a
Let me
terrible
finish
thing
my
to say.
question. I do understand it's a terrible thing to say. My question, my bemusement. Why would you say that?
Because I was really frustrated with the articles that I was reading about how the pandemic was it was derailing women's workplace. It was derailing women's economic trajectories. And there was a specific article that I had read about a woman who had founded her own company. She was the CEO of it. Her husband had taken a sabbatical prior to the pandemic. And within 2 days of childcare closing down, he said, I can't take care of the 4-year-old. And she quit her job to go home and look after the kid.
What's that got to do with you wanting more men to be killed?
So that's one
Piers, if you're going to ask me the question, then let me finish
No,
it.
you know what,
Let me
Clementine?
answer
You know what, Clementine? When you tweet, literally,
So I wrote a
coronavirus
tweet
isn't
thread.
killing men fast enough. I think I'm entitled to push you a little bit more than it was a bit misguided. You're literally calling for the mass culling of men while simultaneously pretending
oh my God.
you don't hate
Piers,
men.
Come on, you know that. Don't be disingenuous. You know that that's not what I was calling for. You
Oh, did
know
he
that it was
misinterpret
You
the
literally
tweet of
said
kill all men?
coronavirus isn't killing
you
men
know
fast
that it was
enough.
a glib tweet, and you know that I also apologized for it shortly after that. You know that I was sincere in my apology.
You didn't apologize
so
to
why
me.
you're dragging it out 5 years
Can
later?
you
Why would you
apologise to
apologize?
Andrew, please?
Will you
To sum
apologize
up,
to me for
prove
saying you wanted me to
that
die?
I would not apologize to you if I did something to you, let
There
alone
we
for
go.
doing nothing to you.
Even if you did something to me,
I
you
don't
wouldn't
consider you
apologize.
Was that the
a
only
person
time,
who
This is the
Clementine?
kind of
Clement,
unseen
hang on. I've got a follow-up.
By the way.
I have a follow-up. Clementine, was that the only time you've tweeted that you want all men to be killed?
Yes, why don't you just say what you want to say?
No, I'm just asking you a
Well,
question. Have you
was it?
tweeted
No,
previously?
I have tweeted prior to that.
Kill all men.
as
Yeah.
a joke.
As a
Yes,
joke, right.
I have.
As a joke.
So
Very
you
funny.
quite
joke,
regularly
yes.
think it's funny to say that men should be
No, I
killed.
don't quite regularly. There's two examples that you can think of.
Yeah, you don't hate
One
men,
of
but you
which
did
was
tweet
5 years
kill all
ago,
men,
and
and
one
then you
of which was
tweeted
at
the
least 10
coronavirus
years
isn't
ago.
killing men fast enough. I put it to you.
Yeah. Oh, hang on. I've also.
I put it to
I've
you.
also
You
tweeted-
probably do
I've
hate
also
men.
tweeted
If
that
you
men
want us
should
all
be fired
dead.
into the sun.
Huh?
I've also said that men should be fired into the sun. Tell me, at what point do these very clearly glib, and yes, I have apologized for them, very clearly glib tweets from a time as well where Twitter was such a toxic. I don't tweet anymore. It's a bad place for everybody.
Okay.
At what point do those things be accepted as glib, misguided, regrettable, deeply apologetic for them now,
Yeah.
remarks that you would never say again?
You don't sound
And
very
yet,
apologetic.
The
I think you should
the
just
jokes
admit
we as
that you
women
don't
are
like men.
expected to.
I think it's the problem comes when you keep
I don't
denying.
like you very much, Piers.
I
Does
don't
that
care
make
if you
you
like
feel
me or
better?
not. You spray gun me in public.
But
I couldn't give a damn.
Why do I have to sit here and admit to you that I don't like men? What are you hoping
I just
to
asked you
gain
if you
out
do
of
or
this?
not. You said you don't hate
I
men.
said that I did.
You spend
I
all your
said that I
time
did,
wanting
and
us
you
to be
don't believe
dead.
me.
Hang on,
well,
Piers, she
listen,
loves
don't
me.
wish all
We
of
just
you
got to
guys.
shoot him into the
Not all
sun.
men.
That's
Put
all.
in the stocks
Shoot him
in
in
the
the
You
sun.
don't like
Square
me. You think
for
Andrew's
this
a piece of
behavior.
shit.
I
So
don't
that's
like all men.
every
The fact that
single
she's even
man
allowed
involved
to
in this
talk this way
debate. You
publicly
hate.
is absurd.
Every single
Every man in this
You're not
debate,
happy
Clementine,
being
you've
successful
said
in
you hate.
relationships with men. You shouldn't be giving advice on it.
Okay, I just left that last part in there for the lulz because I love watching people dig their own graves, essentially. You know, you come out and you say a bunch of stuff and then apologize for it, and then you're like, why are you bashing me over the face with my own words? Like, what? You say some deranged lunatic nonsense and then get mad because people are offended by that? It's like, come on now. Chill out. Like, these feminists take things way too far. They really do, and a lot of times. Like, I'm not saying feminism is a bad thing. I think there's been many, many good civil rights issues come from feminism and, you know, get resolved. I think a lot of the first wave feminism was kind of a good thing on society, giving women their rights, giving them the right to vote, to drive, and all that good stuff. You know, I think fairness, equality is great. We love these things. I'm not some far-right lunatic, once again, you know, but this last wave of feminism is just taking things way too far, where anybody can be a woman, and you know, we don't even need men. You know, that movement is just utter nonsense. They're denying reality. They're denying biology. They're denying everything that, you know, that keeps a cohesive society together and keeps society moving down the train of futuristics, I guess, is what you want to call it. We can move our society. We can keep it going, right? But once we resolve all these civil rights issues, people don't have anything to argue. There's nothing left to argue. So they make things up. And that's something I can't stand. And I think that's where the current feminism and this social justice warrior nonsense is coming from. They claim, oh, bullying online, and online is so toxic, which it kind of is, to be honest with you. But, you know, me, like, talking about the freedom of speech and all this other stuff, I think it's good that, you know, people say things that are blatantly offensive, right? That people get mad at, like the racism thing like we were talking about yesterday. I think people having the ability and them exposing their true feelings, that's a good thing. At least we know where they stand with whatever values that they have. Like Kanye West coming out and talking about all this anti-Semitism stuff. People say, oh, that's so dangerous. I don't think it is. I think it's dangerous to keep that bottled up. I really do. I think as long as everybody knows where everybody else stands, I think, hey, that's a good thing. Then we can get to shaming these people into thinking that way, so they stop thinking that way and start thinking more collectively, if you will. All right, and I'm not talking about, you know, getting rid of diversity of viewpoints or anything like that. That's not what I'm getting at. But, you know, I'm talking about like with the hate, with the racism, with the nonsense, things that do not progress society, things that would regress society back to a place where we don't need to be, right? We don't need any repeats of World War II, for goodness sakes. We don't need that. And I think that this social media landscape and people's, I guess, willingness and openness to shame other people, I think that's good. I think people need to be shamed. But the left, they don't want that. They call that bullying or whatever it may be, whatever the hell they want to call it. Oh, that's a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. Oh, well, people need to be their true selves. Yeah, they can be them true selves. But if you're denying people from being shamed into oblivion, then you're denying everybody else to be their true self. Just outright. You're silencing speech. Censorship is a good thing. I know that may come as a shock to some people, but certain censorship is a good thing. Minimized censorship, right? Like, we don't want to show children pornography and all that other stuff. That's the type of censorship that I'm talking about. We don't need people getting online and exposing themselves, blah, 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 right? The moral framework that makes society cohesively function in a positive direction that furthers society is what we need more of, right? Traditional moral values, right? More Christianity, in my opinion. Because Christianity, okay, this may sound biased, but Christianity, to me, is the best religion, right? We don't promote violence at all. It does have its problems. I ain't gonna lie about that, right? Especially the Catholics out there. You know, don't get mad at me for what the Catholics do. It's not my fault. But for the most part, Catholicism is a net positive, right? You know, all the traditional Protestant religions, if you will, are a net positive. I think secularism, you know, when you impose secularism on society, right, you remove God, you remove that framework of moral values. And then where do your morals derive from, for goodness sakes? This is how we get places like Chicago, where you got degeneracy all over the place, crime running rampant, and nobody cares. People get robbed constantly. It's insane. Sodom and Gomorrah type of stuff going on, right? Whereas you go to, you know, rural America, you don't see that kind of stuff. People are more Christian. They're more religious. They stick to those moral values because they know that there's a higher power that will judge them by their actions on this earth in the end. That is a good thing. That, to me, is a good thing. Call it fascism. Call it whatever you want. I see it as a good moral framework because society needs bumper guards, for goodness sakes, lest it go just run amok and go all over the place and crash into a tree and burn to the freaking ground. If people want that, yeah, that's not a good thing in my opinion. I don't think these people should be allowed to push society in that direction. I think as conservatives, as Christians, we need to push back and shame these people into oblivion and make them rethink their priorities, where they derive their moral values from. And I think feminism is assisting with pushing, getting rid of those bumper guards, if you will. Like, open society up. I don't think that's a good idea. I think a moral structure is the way to go. Cohesive societies like that tend to work the best. But I think I've been rambling for a pretty good long time, so I want y'all to let me know what y'all think about all this down in the comments section. Y'all don't forget to smash that like button for me. Click that join button to sign up, become a member, hit that subscribe button, share this video anywhere and everywhere you can. That would be great. That would be lovely if y'all could do that. But I think that's all I got. I want to thank everybody for watching, and y'all try to have a good day. Stay legitical. Peace.